Let's begin with Marasai's abilities. Marasai's primary fire weapon is Fedayin Rifle. This 8-shot weapon fires for up to 217 damage that falls off past medium range, and can score a 1.5 times damage headshot. Aim down sights with secondary fire to limit recoil, and make shots completely accurate. Marasai's E ability is Beam Blade. Hit with a melee strike that lashes out in front of Marasai, inflicting damage and knockback. This 5-second cooldown deals 350 damage and can hit multiple enemy targets at once. Marasai's F ability is Sea Snake and Snare. Uncoil the Sea Snake to damage, stun, and drag enemies to you. This 9-second cooldown deals 350 damage and limits primary fire shots until it is finished. Marasai's G maneuver is Sea Snake Shock. Unleash a high voltage Sea Snake Lash that deals damage and stuns any enemies in a cone in front of you. This ability deals 350 damage and stuns for 2.5 seconds. Now for the strengths and weaknesses of Marasai. Marasai is based around its hook ability, Sea Snake and Snare, that allows it to snatch an enemy player and pull them to itself. Whether whipping a hook around a corner or catching an enemy in a 1v1, this is Marasai's first strength as it will result in a one-shot kill combo if used properly. Marasai can also dash right after hooking an enemy to pull them in even farther, giving it an even more effective displacement ability. Marasai also has a very powerful G maneuver that can hit full enemy teams through shields and result in a team wipe. While not usable often as it is a G maneuver ability, it still is extremely strong. In addition, Marasai has 2 thruster gauge dash bars, giving it a solid movement ability. This gives it a bit of unpredictability that other hook archetype characters often lack. Now let's move on to the weaknesses. While Marasai does have high damage kill combos with hook into Beam Blade into primary fire, it lacks in damage otherwise. Its primary fire deals only 270 damage, making a 5-shot kill a standard 1000 hit point mobile suit to the body, or need 3 shots to the head plus 1 to the body to kill otherwise. Simply put, its damage lacks in comparison to other mobile suits. However, Marasai's biggest weakness revolves around its lack of tankiness. Its relatively low hit points and lack of defensive ability counteract its necessity to play in aggressive locations where it can hook enemies and apply damage. Other hook-based characters control certain areas with high health pools along with the hook threat, but Marasai cannot do this. Additionally, though it has 1200 hit points, hooks into more than one enemy at a time are risky, and will often result in Marasai being focused down after it hits the hook. Dashing directly after landing the hook will bypass some of this, but will also make it less consistent, as the enemy will often get caught on a wall or another part of the map and not end up directly in front of you. Additionally, Marasai has 2 final weaknesses. First, Marasai struggles against shields without its G maneuver available, as it cannot hook through them and it lacks the damage to burn them down. And last, it completely lacks a vertical mobility option, meaning it cannot consistently access high ground if needed. Finished with the strengths and weaknesses, let's cover when to play Marasai. Marasai is a close to mid-range mobile suit, so maps that favor medium sightlines are best to play it on. Long sightline maps will often end with Marasai unable to apply any damage or hit hooks. And very close quarter sections of maps are more likely to end with Marasai being barrel stuffed by a unit like Sazabi. Marasai struggles against shield mobile suits, and flankers that move very rapidly too, so if the enemy doesn't have enough viable targets to land hooks onto, then it is better to play another mobile suit. As mentioned before, Marasai has no vertical movement abilities, so it is best to play it when you can already be standing on a defensive high ground, or the map is mostly flat. Now to cover the how to play of Marasai. Marasai has 2 potential styles that you can play it in. One is a safe space producing primary tank, and the other as a flanker. When there are no better units on your team to fill the tank role, then it becomes your job as Marasai. Otherwise, if you have a more effective tank like a Sazabi for example, then you're free to flank. So, let's start with the tank version. As a tank, Marasai's job is to secure safe space for its team. Yet how can this be achieved without a shield or abilities to protect its teammates? Marasai achieves this goal by threatening the enemy with its hook combo, and fragging enemies that enter into this threat range, therefore making certain sections of the map safer for its team to play in. You can think of Marasai's hook as a circle around it, where any enemy that enters into the range of it can be hooked and killed. With this idea in mind, Marasai should position behind cover nearby the enemy, then should look to hook any enemy that moves into its threat range. Immediately dash back into his team to pull the enemy farther after, and then finish off the kill. Your team will be playing around you like a focal point, so from there, Marasai and his team can push up farther into the space that it just secured, and repeat the process. Of course, there will be times when you miss your first hook, so when you do, just hunker down and wait for it to come back. As long as you're positioned in a good location, the enemy shouldn't be able to pressure into you and kill you. From there, get your hook back, look for another target, and repeat until you are successful. Alternatively, if there is good cover or the enemy doesn't have anything to punish you with like a shield unit or stuns, you can sometimes play more aggressively and push into areas without having secured a kill. The mere threat of your hook combo advancing into a holdable position will force enemies away. If they don't back up, then you can easily hook them, dash back into your team, and then kill them. Just keep in mind that during either of these methods, Marasai is not quite as tanky as it would like to be, so you must always be playing from cover to cover, and be cautious about playing aggressively without his hook available. Now, transferring over to Marasai's alternative playstyle as a flanker. When Marasai is playing with a more effective tank like Sazabi, and does not bear the responsibility of creating space for its team, an excellent option is to flank. Flanking gives two primary benefits to Marasai: distraction to his teammates and safe access to unaware targets. While flanking, Marasai can split from his team and hide from the enemy, so enemies are forced to spend time and attention looking for it, or they might be hooked and killed unexpectedly. While not as pronounced as on a character like Barbatos, when Marasai initiates its attack after an effective flank, the enemy will be panicked and focusing most of its attention on Marasai. During this time, its team gains free time and space to push forward and pressure the distracted enemy team, which will often result in easy kills. As mentioned before, the second benefit of flanking a Marasai is how it allows it to sneak onto unsuspecting targets. The middle of maps is almost always open and the focus of most players, while the sides are almost always closed and hidden from sight. Bypassing the middle of the map with correct usage of the map sides, Marasai can arrive on the enemy flanks undetected, with full hit points and its hook combo available. From there, it can sneak a kill and then run away back to its team. To make these flanks even more successful, let's cover the specifics on how to flank effectively. Always look for flanks with covered routes. Rooms and close quarter areas hide you from long sight lines that expose you to long range enemies. Being unexposed to these enemies lowers your risk of being discovered and prevented from securing a kill. Your top resource is the element of surprise, as an unaware enemy is a free kill, so absolutely do not let the enemy know your location before you engage, and make sure you play randomly. When you attack, how you attack, where you attack from, whatever you do, change it up. However, Marasai does not have the mobility of full flankers like Zaku and Exia, so do not go too far. While flanks behind the enemy are viable on these other mobile suits, Marasai does not have enough mobility to survive them consistently, so they should be avoided. Now, let's change gears and move on to specifics on Marasai's abilities. Marasai's hook kill combo is very important to understand, and can be broken down into two techniques. The first technique is how to do the kill combo. First, Marasai should hit its hook, then use Beam Blade before the target arrives to make the combo as quick as possible, and then should finish with one or more primary fire shots to the head. Finally, this can all be combined with the backwards dash right after the hook lands to pull the enemy in farther, or can be used with Marasai turning sideways to position the enemy beside it in an even easier location to kill. Regardless of how effective you become with hooks, there are times where primary fire shots are simply better to use. When dueling a hard to hit enemy like Exia or Zaku, a few hit primary shots will be enough to force him away. While landing a hook will certainly gain you the kill, missing leaves you vulnerable and at risk of dying to the flanker instead. So in these cases, the more consistent primary fires will usually be better to use, as when an enemy gets on top of you, your goal becomes survival more so than securing kills. For Marasai's G maneuver, it should be seen as a tool to pressure even more aggressively and into groups. Play mostly as you would without it, but watch for an opportunity to move aggressively and unleash it. Whether using it to burn down a shield unit bullying you in the front line, or to crush a whole group of enemies, understand how you can play aggressively with it and you will find your opportunities. However, be careful not to take too much damage while using it, as it has a long cast time and you will simply die during its use. Want more mobile suit guides? Check out this tank guide for Sazabi, or one of the flanker guides available in this playlist like Exia, Barbatos, or Pale Rider. Thanks everyone for all the support. See you guys later.